Going to the regional analysis to look at each region, how does it work? How does it work in each region when NDC is losing, MPP is losing? We'd like to begin with the Greater Accra region. Okay, so this is the Greater Accra region and the way in which it works in our elections. Now, it is the capital, and it has always been said that except in 2020, whoever wins the regional capital always wins the presidential election. That's what it's always been. Akufo-Addo changed that in 2020. Many things changed in 2020. Ghana and America had been voting the same way since 1992. It's only in 2020 that we changed. What do I mean? In America, if the Democrats win, the NDC wins. If the Republicans win, the MPP wins. That's how it has been. In 2020, the Democrats won, the MPP won. That's the first time that it's changed. What's going to happen in 2024? I don't know. But let's focus on this one. All right, so you have 2008 Greater Accra region. Akufo-Addo in the first round picks 45% of Greater Accra region. NDC has 52%. NDC wins Greater Accra region in 2008 by 101,000 votes. You remember we're saying that Nana Akufo-Addo won just 2 regions in 2008 and was almost winning the presidency. Nana Akufo-Addo, after winning 2 regions, and Professor Mills winning 8 regions in Greater Accra, in fact, Professor Mills beat Akufo-Addo by 100,000, the same margin Akufo-Addo was leading across the nation. That must be very significant, viewers, if you are following. Professor Mills in one region beat Akufo-Addo by 100,000. Professor Mills went on to win 7 other regions out of the 10. Akufo-Addo won only 2. At the end of winning 2, and Professor Mills winning 7, including beating him in Greater Accra by 100,000, Akufo-Addo was still leading the count by 100,000. That should tell you what I'm talking about. That's what we have found out, and I hope you are getting the same thing. MPP's path to presidency is easier because look at how much Professor Mills had worked. He has won 8 regions. In one region, he has beaten his opponent by 100,000. The opponent has just won 2 regions. 2 regions put together puts the opponent in the presidential seat short of 25,000. That's significant. Okay, so as you are listening to this, stop listening to the politicians, look at the figures, and you see that the 2024 election could be a completely different kettle of fish. All right. In the year 2012, NDC wins again. So John Mahama is obtaining 52% in Greater Accra region. Akufo-Addo is getting 46%, and John Mahama is winning by 115,000 difference. Okay, so when NDC are winning the elections, their Greater Accra region should be looking in a certain way. If NDC is going to win 2024, when the Greater Accra results are coming, should be looking in a certain way. NDC should be picking 52% of Greater Accra region and should be commanding a difference between they and the MPP about 100,000, all other things being equal. All other things being equal. If you are NDC and you want to use Greater Accra region to gauge whether you are doing well in the national situation, you would have to see or you would have to receive results from Greater Accra region that is putting your party at about 52% at the end of the presidential count and giving you a lead of about 150,000, mimicking what happened in 2012. And then you can start exciting yourself on the night of election that this is a good night, this is looking good, this is a pretty night for the NDC. If you don't see that, then there's trouble coming, all things being equal. If you are MPP, on the other hand, and we see it here in 2016, Akufo-Addo in 2016 is winning Greater Accra by 52% and picking up a difference of 116,000. And that's what gave Akufo-Addo the whooping, commanding experience of 2016. Now let's come to 2020 for MPP. 2020 is still very tight. It's still very tight for both parties. NPP is actually losing Greater Accra region to John Mahama, 48% for Akufo-Addo, 51% for John Mahama, and NDC wins by 53%. Now, what does this tell us about Greater Accra? This means that Greater Accra is actually an NDC place, and that NDC should be able to consolidate it, and that MPP can, however, steal it. Because you see, if you can be losing by 73,000 in Greater Accra and still win the national election by a difference of 500,000, it means that MPP can do, even if they are not winning in Greater Accra, the presidential. That is why the presidential looked like what it looked like in 2020, and the parliamentary looked completely different, because the MPP's path to presidency is always easier. They always have a huge vote to start the presidential election from Ashanti and Eastern. And the NDC will have to start the night of the presidential election by clawing back, and hoping that they can claw back to the point where the NPP is not making first round. Because as soon as the presidential election starts, if you add Ashanti margins and Eastern margins, the NPP is almost starting from about a 2 million, 1.8, 1.6, that the NDC must now start clawing back. Greater Accra should claw some back. Western should take some back. Western North, Otchere region, Volta region, Northern region, Bono region. They all have to claw back on these figures. And in 2008, they couldn't claw it back until Akufo-Addo could not get a 25,000 to make the threshold. So that's how the presidential elections looks. And the parliamentary elections also look the way it looks, isn't it? All right. So NPP here shows that they can lose Greater Accra by 73,000 and still win. So on election night, if you are MPP and you are losing Greater Accra in the presidential by, say, 40,000, you are not bothered yet. You still don't need to be bothered. All other things being equal, you are still in a good position. It may still be a good night. If, however, you are NDC and you see that NDC is winning Greater Accra, but is not winning it significantly by more than 73, getting to the 100,000, 100 and something, and they are winning it by 35,000, 40,000, all the Greater Accra presidential, it's a grey night. You have to wait to see what's happening in the other regions to be able to make a decision. So here is the data for all the elections that have been fought in 2008 in the second round of the same election, 2012, 2016, and 2020. So let's see what we glean from these figures. In 2008's first round, Akufo-Addo won and 49.13%. He missed the threshold by about 25,000 to become the president. Professor Mills got 47.92%, and the difference among the two candidates was 102,000 votes. Akufo-Addo was leading Prof. Mills by 102,000 votes. Going into the second round, Professor Mills beat Akufo-Addo, turned it over into a 40,000 gain. Now, Professor Mills eventually won the election by 50.23. That figure is very instructive. Keep that in mind. We are picking the analysis from 2008. Forget about 92, 96, 2000, and 2004. That's quite old. And the trends of today do not reflect that one. But the trend since 2008 is still quite similar, so we can deal with it. Now, keep an eye on this one. Professor Mills won. This is the first election that NDC won after Rawlings. And Professor Mills won it in a second round by obtaining 50.23% of the votes. Now, let's come to 2012. 2012 also, John Dramani Mahama won the election for the NDC. Now, this is the second election NDC won after J.J. Rawlings. And again, John Dramani Mahama won it in a first round victory. Again, his vote count ended at 50.70, I believe. 50 points. That's the biggest number that the NDC have been doing since 2008, since Rawlings, who did 57% twice. Okay. Then comes 2016. In 2016, Akufo-Addo wins the election in the first round. We know that the margin was big. Almost 1,984,000 was the vote difference between Akufo-Addo and John Mahama. The percentage score for Akufo-Addo was 53.7, is one of the largest. In terms of an opposition candidate, it's really the largest. And John Mahama also registered what appeared to be the NDC's lowest vote tally in the Fourth Republic. It was 44%. This is 2016. Then let's look at 2020's elections. If we come to 2020 here on the chart, we will see that the NPP again won the election by a difference of 517,000, something like about half of how much they won 2016 with. And in that election, which Akufo-Addo won first round, which was very, very close, the NPP won 51.3%. So we've seen that the NDC in its electoral victories, in the biggest victory that they won in 2012, the percentage was 50 points. They didn't cross 50%. Professor Mills, in the biggest victory that he won in the runoff of 2008, was 50 points. On the NPP side, in these four elections, the biggest has been 53 and 51. So the NPP seem to be, when they are winning the elections, they seem to gather a lot of momentum to win their elections. When NDC is winning elections, they do win, but it looks like it's always very, very tight in the presidential race. And we said that because we told you before that the NPP's path to presidency is easier than the NDC's path to presidency. The NDC's path to parliamentary victory is easier than the NPP path to parliamentary victory. Why do we say that? The NPP controls the numbers in the hinterland, in the agricultural belts of Ghana, the hinterlands, the eastern region, Ashanti region, heavily controlled by the NPP. their sizes of their parliamentary seats are far bigger. And it's speculated that Chachu Chikata, who was in charge of doing these things in the 1992 Consultative Assembly, fixed it so that the NDC will have a lot of parliamentary seats. So if you go to Ashanti and Eastern, each constituency is so huge. But you come to the NDC areas, Upper East, Upper West, you see that constituencies are very, very small. Many, many years ago, as a young journalist, I interviewed Josiah Aye. He's dead now. May he rest in peace. He was my lecturer in property law at the Faculty of Law in his later life. But in his earlier life, he came back from London as a politician. He was teaching at the London School of Economics Law, and he came to be General Secretary of the NDC. Now, I interviewed him when he first came to Ghana to fight for a seat in the seat that is now occupied by Nilante Vanderpoy, the former mayor of Accra. Between him and Fritz Bafo, the seat that they have, it was one seat, including where Esla also is. It was all one for a lady named Theresa Ameletego. Ameletego also passed. Josiah competed with Ameletego in the year 2000. And Josiah told me in an interview that he thinks that there's something wrong with Ghana's parliamentary distribution. And I asked him why. He said, how can he, Josiah Aye, win 35,000 votes in Dansoman and he is not in parliament? Because Ameletego got 52,000. That was how big the Dansoman constituency was in the year 24 years ago. Ameletego got 52,000 and got elected. He got 35,000 and he wasn't elected. So I asked him that, but what's wrong with that? You lost the election. He said, yes, I lost. But now look at this. And listen to the example he gave. John Dramani Mahama. This interview is 2001. Josiah said, John Mahama. And we didn't know today will come. He said, John Mahama comes from Boli Bamboy. Do you know how many votes he got to win? I said, no. 7,000. And I said, oh, that's interesting. He said, but that's what you journalists should be talking about. He didn't know the agenda that was set in favor of his party. I just come from London. Obroni man. He didn't understand. So I was telling him that, this is really, he said, but that is the point. You journalists should be talking about that. How can somebody come to parliament with 7,000 from Boli Bamboy? 7,000 is what he got. 7,000. He won. I had 35,000 Ghanaians voting for me and they don't have representation. The Boli Bamboy constituency is too narrow, it's too small. It should be added so that everybody who comes to parliament knows that he has come from the strength of 100,000 people. All of us are equally matched in parliament like that. So I had this conversation with Alban Bagbin, the speaker today. This is 2001, 2002. And Bagbin told me that I should tell Josiah that it's not just population that is used. Because Bagbin is from Nadole. And when I checked at that time, I can't remember now, but at that time when I checked, Bagbin's figures were as small as John Mohammed's figures. So he's my friend. I talk to him very often, and I like his, philosophical brain. So I'm always talking to Bagbin those days. These days, he's speaker, so we don't have to talk to him like that. All right. So I went to him and we were talking, and he said, Josiah must understand that the parliamentary thing is not just about the numbers. That even though in Adole where he is, the numbers may be small, the distances that he travels to go and meet just 3 people is significant. If they were talking about the land size, Josiah will understand that Mahama and him also are representing people. After all, Saba said that land in Ghana belongs to the living, the dead, and the yet to be born. So this is the argument we had. And this is why the NDC's path to parliament is very simple. Because small constituencies in Upper East, NDC win all of it. 100 people, 1, 202. But if you come to Bantama, you have 200,000 as one MP. So you may win the seat. So you win the seat in Bantama, and then you win 1 member of parliament, but you have won 150,000 votes. And those 150,000 votes also go to the presidential election. So the president has got 100, and that is why in 2008, Akufo-Addo had won only 2 regions. Here, in 2008, here, the first round, when Akufo-Addo won 49.13%. At that time, there were 10 regions in Ghana. Akufo-Addo won 2. And with 2, he had 4,159,439. Now, Professor Mills won 8 regions. And with 8, he had 4,056,630 for 47%. He was 2 percentage points behind Akufo-Addo and 102,000 votes behind Akufo-Addo. Even though Professor Mills had won 8 regions, Akufo-Addo had won 2. Akufo-Addo was about to be elected president. That is how the map of Ghana is shaped. So the MPP always have an easier path to the presidency. So on election night, in fact, there's been no election that I have covered that the first results that come show NDC winning. All the first results show MPP leading in the presidential. By the time we do first 35 constituencies, you put it there, NPP is always leading. Because the MPP's path to the presidency is easier. They have the numbers in the agriculture belt. But the NDC path to